Well, welcome everybody to the National Press Club. It's always an honor for us to be able to provide an opportunity for our finalists for the AASA Superintendent of the Year program and award to allow us to have this press conference and learn a little bit more about each of them. We couldn't put programs on like this without the assistance and partnership of some great corporate partners, including Corbridge and Sourcewell. And we want to thank both of them for their participation and their support of this very important activity. I'm Dave Schuler. I'm the Executive Director of AASA, and my only task today is to introduce the moderator. So it is my pleasure to introduce Olina Banerji from Education Week.
Good afternoon, everyone. Very happy and honored to be here, and you got the name spot on, so no worries about that at all. A round of applause for all our Superintendent of the Year finalists. Congratulations. All of you have done such uplifting and supportive work for your communities, and over the next hour, I hope to ask you questions that we can help drive into your work and also have a little bit of fun on the way. Just one housekeeping note before we start. We're going to have questions from the audience at the end of the session, so we'll have 10 minutes for that, so reserve your questions for that. And with that, we can start off. So to kick off, I would love, starting from Debbie, for you to give us a little bit of introduction to yourselves. And with that, tell us one unique, intriguing, unknown thing about your district.
Hello, I'm Debbie Jones. I'm superintendent of Bentonville School. We have 20,000 students. We're the home of the Walmart home office, and that's really important for our existence. What you may not know is we're opening a medical school for Ho Health, the Alice Walton School of Medicine, and the first 2 classes of students will go free, and their training should change the medical care in America. It's working on diet and working on exercise more than just prescriptions. And so we're really excited about our opportunities for our kids to partner with awesome Alice Walton School of Medicine.
Good afternoon. My name is Walter Gonsoulin. I'm the superintendent of Jefferson County Schools. We have 35,000 students, the second largest school district in the state of Alabama. The thing that I would say is that a little known fact about that most people don't know about Jefferson County is that we are 1,100 square miles. We're just a little smaller than the state of Rhode Island. And so, as a superintendent, when I visit one side of the district to the next, I have to make sure I have breakfast, lunch, and possibly a snack. But we are a school district that have embraced the new challenges, as in school choice, and has some interesting things to share with you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sharon Desmoulin-Kherat, and I am representing Peoria Public Schools in the city of Peoria, Illinois, the city of gratitude. I've been superintendent for 10 years, and we are an urban district, pre-K through 12th grade, and Peoria is known for its, Peoria, Illinois, it's a Midwestern city. We're actually equally between located between Chicago and St. Louis. We're a hub for industry and education, and we have an amazing riverfront as well, and a great historic Midwestern city. And let's see, what are we known for? Well, Richard Pryor graduated from our school, but we have a lot, not graduated, he attended our school. We have a lot of graduates, but I would say something unique about my school district is that we're able to assist a number of school districts in the state of Illinois with teachers, international teachers, and actually other states as well. So that is, we started that maybe 2 years ago, and there was just an article in today's paper about Kankakee, which is a district not too far from Peoria, bringing on 26 teachers because we were able to sponsor those teachers for them. So I'm very, very excited about that teacher exchange program. We have about 86 visas that we have more than we need. And so my my staff and I are really proud of that work. Thank you.
Good afternoon, Dave Moore. I'm superintendent of the school district of Indian River County, where it is absolutely never this cold. School district of Indian River County, 95% of its schools are in A, where 5 years ago, only 46% of its schools were in A, or under or a C or below. We're in the process of transforming what public education looks like. And I think that's one thing unique about us. We're engaging in a conversation with our community about what public education looks like and what it could be, and how we create ourselves in order to ensure that we're meeting the needs of absolutely every single student in our community. Thank you.
Great. Thank you all for the great introductions. And I do want to come to that topic of how public education is changing and what our schools are going to look like. I do want to go back in time a little bit. As we all know, COVID was this black swan event that happened to our education system, and we've made great strides. All of you made great strides in recovering from that. But what we've seen across the country is patterns of unequal academic recovery. And I know each of you have ideas on how to close those achievement gaps. So I'd love to hear from each of you what you've done in your district, what's been successful, what you're still working on. Dave, maybe we'll start with you and then we can come down the panel.
All right, absolutely. Thank you. Simple reality, Indian River County, we're in a better academic place today than we were before the pandemic. And we never allowed the pandemic to serve as an excuse in terms of what we can do to support our community's children. We've been hard at work. I started 44 days before the pandemic started. Yeah, fun. But use that tragedy as the opportunity to have a deep understanding as who was in the building, who was leading our schools. We were steadfast in using that opportunity to build instructional leaders. Instruction drives discipline. So we took that time while we were at home to ensure that we were investing in each and every single principal and assistant principal, empowering them to be world-class educational leaders so they had the skills to support their teachers, to ensure teachers had the necessary resources that they needed to have to create meaningful experiences for absolutely all kids. Indian River School District had a lot of work to do, and still does have a lot of work to do. We are a system that evaluates middle schools. When we evaluate middle schools, you look at students who had the opportunity to participate in high school coursework, typically Algebra 1. We are 57 of 67 districts in the state of Florida. Only 57% of our students were being provided the opportunity to participate. Now we are third in the state, and we are ranking at 95% of our students. I don't need to say which students weren't being afforded the opportunity to participate in those courses, but we put a stake in the ground and we said all means all. And we're going to provide quality education and ensure each and every single student has that education, which means we're going to review schedules. We're going to staff schools based on the needs of students. We're going to hold ourselves accountable for the actions that need to take place to be bold and courageous for our children.
Thank you. In Peoria, the journey has been one of reimagining our work and doing our work differently. When I started in 2015 as superintendent, I had 108 teacher openings, just teacher openings alone. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? Where am I going to find these teachers? And that's why we ended up going on that journey and filling out the application with the United States Department of Government here in Washington, D.C. And it took us 4 years to get that application successful. So number one, ensuring that we have highly qualified teachers in every classroom. I felt really bad year after year. I witnessed many schools. We have 27 schools where there were just subs after subs after subs year in and year out. It was devastating, and it impacted the climate, not only for the kids misbehaving, but also teachers as well. So that was a huge priority on my plate, number one. And so then our graduation rate as well. You talked about the algebra and for all of our middle schoolers. When I came back also, I looked at our algebra stats and I noticed the students in 8th grade who had access to algebra in middle school were either in the gifted school or very few in our in schools located in affluent. And so I kept asking, well, what about the other kids? What about all of the other schools? And we have a number, about 10 middle schools. They kept telling me they're not ready, they're not ready, they're not ready. So about 3 years ago, we put a plan together and accelerated our middle school mathematics and just accelerated it in 7th grade, for example, and 6th grade as well. And so this year, for the first time, all of our middle school students, every last one of the middle school children have access. They actually are receiving algebra in middle school. And of course, a lot of supports for our teachers as well, the new teacher project team, TNTP. A lot of you probably heard of them. And I'm very proud of that. And my board was very proud of that as well. We've increased our teacher retention rate also. That helps. You have to have stability from 78% in 2015 to 88% in 2024. Our teacher vacancy, for example, have reduced significantly. It's probably about 15, 16 on a lot of those encore classes. And we have, as I said, we have enough to share. Our curriculum, we used a lot of the funding from AASA to make sure we had a viable and guaranteed curriculum, a lot of options for our kids. I mentioned to the committee this morning, we have about 15 or 16 various options. So one size doesn't fit all. There is really no reason a child in Peoria Public Schools should not graduate. You have online options. We've extended the career technical program as well. When I came in 2015, my community business, including Caterpillar and everybody else, they said, we want you to focus not just on preparing them for college, but also for ensuring that they're ready with credentials, and they have credentials and certifications. Over 600 kids have every year they graduate. We've expanded our pathways. And for example, where Caterpillar has a manufacturing program, and I learned so much from that 6 years ago, E4Life, they came to me and said, hey, we're tired of, we're not going to advertise anymore and think they'll come to us. We're going to go to where they are. And they've targeted manual, which is a school that's located in a disinvested area. And they interviewed the kids. And right now we have a manufacturing program. The kids come to school half the day. They work with them the other half. And they're paid very well, paint and supply chain and you name it, manufacturing. Even their parents have access to jobs and where they can go straight into fully employed with mentors. They learn financial literacy planning, or they can go into college and then have those internships. So it's all of those opportunities for kids that we're doing.
As I stated earlier, we are the second largest school district in the state of Alabama, and how large our school district is. Within that school district, Jefferson County, we serve 13 different feeder patterns. And when you look at those different feeder patterns, from the next, very different. So when we talk about bridging the achievement gap, it is multifaceted. And so one of the things that we had to do is we had to ensure that we got to know the people that we're serving, so that we understand what the achievement gap, exactly where did it exist. One of the things that we realized coming out of COVID was that we had an attendance problem in some of those feeder patterns. Some we did, some we did not. And so we hired college professors and consulting groups to go in and do focus studies within our communities to see exactly what were the problems, what were the issues. One of the things that we realized was that we had to make sure that when the children were coming to school, that they wanted to come to school. It was for something, right? And so at our high school level, for example, we formed signature academies to where we got with our business community, and we saw the high interest, high wage jobs, and we formed part-time academies to where children, their zip code, it didn't matter what their zip code was, right? They could actually have a quality education. They weren't limited by that. So what does that mean? We put clusters of high schools together, and we put them into 4 different zones: northern, southern, eastern, and western. And so children at the high school, at one particular high school, they had a plethora of courses that they could choose from: health science, manufacturing. But that wasn't the only thing they were limited to. They could look at the other 3 or other 2 high schools within their zones. And if there were programs there that they wanted to attend and participate in to get credentials, then therefore they were allowed to do it, and we transported them to and from. we just finished putting Wi-Fi on all of the buses so that in case there was instruction being missed, the children could they could tap right into the classroom. What we found was that when you have children who are participating in things that they're interested in, number one, the discipline goes down. In 2 years, we've only had one discipline referral written out of the 2,500 a year children that were there. The teachers who are teaching those courses, we find that they're interested in as well. You put those two groups together, you have something magical. So we saw our credentials, for example. We saw those credentials go from 1,000 to over 4,000 credentials within a 1 year period because people wanted to be there. And we made it real for them. So we partnered with the business community, the personnel boards, the local personnel boards. We knew what the vacancies were in the area, the job vacancies. Because 70% of our children, when they graduate, they stayed in the area within a 50-mile circumference. So we looked at those high wage, high entry jobs in those areas, and we matched those children up. What did that do for those children? Those children graduated from high school at 18 years old in manufacturing, making $40,000, $50,000 a year. They graduated in the health science and doing the same thing, or going straight to college to finish that. So now our business community was interested. They're tapped in. And so again, our attendance went up, our discipline went down, and not only attendance for children, but also attendance for teachers. We multi-faceted things. We had to make sure that within our schools that our teachers were ready to teach. They were well trained. And so we implemented a strategy where we put coaches in all of our elementary, instructional coaches, in all of our elementary and all of our middle schools. So, it was teachers, they weren't there, they didn't evaluate them, but they coached them. So it strengthened our tier 1 instruction so that children were actually getting the lessons. And we made sure that we did recruitment efforts so that we can get quality teachers. We had a big shortage with the teacher shortage with special ed. And so we grew our own. We looked at our paraprofessionals and we asked ourselves, who wanted to go back to school? Who wanted to go back to be a regular teacher? And we identified those people. And the school district, along with the university partnership, and we made sure that the individual had skin in the game too. All of us did a third to allow those people to go back so that they can finish their degree, and that we had qualified people in the classroom that was working with our children. And last, I would say, with the summer programs, we extended our summer programs to more children and more areas than just math and reading, but we also included extracurricular activities like art, music, things that children wanted to be a part of.
This question, and I know as many superintendents in the room will agree, reminds me how quickly superintendents heal from scars, and we forget about it. I remember at the onset of COVID, we expected the governor to close schools over the weekend. The Friday afternoon before that happened, we sent 10,000 Chromebooks home with half of the district, the other half already had them, kindergartners. And we didn't, no sleep to put the computer in because they weren't in yet. We didn't lose one Chromebook. And that was really important. I can honestly say Bentonville Schools is in a better place today because of COVID. Do you remember the early days when in our district, our teachers, we stayed on a schedule because it was really important for our students to stay connected with our teachers. So they had the live face in front of them. In the early days when parents were writing all over Facebook what amazing jobs teachers do, their parades, do you see those today? How quickly we've forgotten. That's what I'm talking about, the scars. But we were in a good place, number one, because we stayed on a schedule and teachers worked very hard to stay connected with kids. Teachers who didn't know that they could teach virtually learned in 2 days, because we gave them 2 days to prepare. began teaching virtually. And we also were in a good place because of the work that we had done to create an opportunity culture, lead higher. We worked with equal opportunity schools, and I had the opportunity at our high school to sit back like a fly on the wall and watch this very talented, unintimidating man sit with the principal and the counselors and the department leads. And he had gone through all of our high school roster data, looked at all their scores, and said, "Tell me about this student. Look at his scores. He's not in any AP classes or any advanced work. Why?" And it was such enlightening work for my whole team. We then began the process of finding kids who were not engaged. Kids are not going to come to school for math and literacy. They come to school for social relationships. They come to school to get to build a plane. They come to school to do culinary arts. They come to school for PE. They do that. And so we have to think more as superintendents than just the academics. We're a very high performing district, the highest in the state. We have A schools. We have, of all of our 24 schools, we have 2 C schools. We take other national comparison schools, the Mid-States Consortium, and we work together to learn from them, from other states. And that's really improved our work. But the point is that we have to work on more than math and literacy. We have to create opportunities for kids to want to be there, to engage. And most recently, we've gone completely cell phone free K-12. We started as a pilot last year. Last spring, had really incredible data from both staff and from academic results and decreases in behaviors. And then we engaged as a leadership team in reading Jonathan Haidt's work, engaging with him. And then we just opened school this year self-free. And it's much easier than it sounds and appears. It's been such a positive impact, and this is the difference between an engaged and unengaged student. I do listen lounges as I go from school to school, and I just sit with the staff and say, talk to me about concerns, ideas, and they do. And all of them have been very supportive of the work we've done this year. But the librarian at one of our junior highs said, I do lunch duty. And what I don't see anymore is the student huddled up in the corner, hoodie over his head, engaged in his phone. I see them up, they're louder, they're running, they're acting like junior high kids. In our advisory class, when the kids first walked in for the first days of school, the girl asked, what do I do? And the teacher said, do you have friends in here? And she said, I do. Talk to them. And so that seems like a small thing, but we have to get students re-engaged with each other to have a purpose, to come to school, to want to come to school. And then you build out the other opportunities. And I know we'll talk more about this later, but from kindergarten to high school, you have to get something that will interest them.
Well, thank you. Since you've answered all my questions already, I think we started talking about this already, right? The expectations of going to a 4-year college after high school, they've changed. A lot of kids want to start working earlier. They want to be economically independent. And we did get into this a little bit. So I'll tweak the question. What did you have to reframe for yourselves as leaders when you realized that kids want something different from their experience of middle school and high school? And sort of with your reframe expectations, then how did you convince your staff, your districts to offer more of these options? Maybe Sharon, we can start with you, and then Debbie, we can come to you since we didn't hear about the career pipeline from you.
Thank you. This is really important and it's huge. We have to pivot, and it's a paradigm shift. And so I'm going on wrapping up my second 5-year strategic plan. So the first strategic plan was very similar to everybody else's. The second one, I said there were 100 individuals involved, community, staff members, board members. I said, let's go for something bold and something different and something exciting for the kids. And so a strategic plan or vision is reimagining, specifically reimagining our work around students' interest and passion so that they can be successful and responsible. So that's very exciting to me and to my community and to my staff. And it has really sort of gotten us, like, it's that fire, right? And the fire under us, and thus pushing us for, like, we've shifted from this one size fit all, central, standardized mode that you're shoving everybody in. So we have quite a bit of options, as I referenced, including the, and so in order to reframe them, sorry, in order to like reimagine, you have to be unapologetically bold. And so I talk a lot about that with my peers as well, and we talk about being unapologetically bold. And so with our Career Technical Center, for example, Miguel Cardona came from Washington, D.C. on his bus tour, visited our culinary program. They've won lots of national and national state awards. They've come to D.C. and different places to compete as well. And I loved what he said. He spoke to the kids, he spoke to the employers, and he said, this is what I would like to see across the country, where kids have a pathway, they have an idea, they have a pathway in hand, they have a job in hand, because he met a lot of children who got hired $50,000, and they can stack it on and move on. So he said, and then they're walking out with six figures instead of six figures in debt. And so I really enjoy that, plus a mentor and those sorts of things. So we've expanded that. We have an online school for them, and we have every kid has access to an online portal where they take a career interest test, because that was very important to me. When I first became superintendent, and I sort of my son, some of you have met him, I remember talking to 10 students who had just graduated. And I said, so you graduated, so now what are you going to do? And the majority of them had no idea. And so I'm like, you know what? We need to do a better job as educators, as superintendents. So we locked in and pushed in that, it's the career cruising, I think it's School Link now. But we pushed that in. And so they have an advisory time. How are you coming along with your what are you learning from what, the interest tests and those sorts of things? So it's actually very exciting reframing, because who wants to come to work to do the same boring thing? I surely don't. And you're right. My kids, I was a primary principal, high school principal, middle school principal, and when I surveyed my primary kids, they thought PE was a subject. What's your favorite subject? Recess. What's your favorite subject? Recess. So yeah, it's just very, very, very exciting bringing in new teachers. It's a cultural exchange, so they learn from them as well. The tutors are coming in, a lot of interventions, and they have all these options to select. We have several programs where they work, and then they go to school, and then they work on a high set, and then they do a capstone, and it's all based on the children really need to drive this. We're the facilitators, but I love when the kids are driving it, they're telling us what they want, and we're providing that support for them. And I was high school principal, and they always said to me, when can I get out of here? Can I graduate early? And they always wanted to graduate, and I understood it, and I said, yes, you can graduate early. So we had a lot of December graduates as well, and I helped them to do that. And then they could go into Central College, they can get a job, they can go to university, and then just kind of move on. But this is what this is all about. We're public servants to help them and help make a difference for everybody, no matter where they are.
Sure, thank you. Debbie, I'll just top off that question saying, were you anxious about the reframing ever? Were there challenges? Like, add to that as well. Yeah.
Absolutely. I remember a specific instance when Ignite Professional Studies is a premier professional studies career program. We don't say college or career, we're preparing for all career. Students from both of our high schools come to this program, but we also have career programs back in our high school. But this is the model by which all other programs within our districts should grow. And so beginning in 2016, there were 16 kids, and there are over 600 kids in the program now, and many more on the waiting list. and we'll talk about that. But I remember the anxiety I had because in working with the director of Ignite, I said, what are the curriculum standards? What book? What? I don't know yet. This was summer before we started this next program. And so when it comes to career classes, we have to unlearn everything we've learned about curriculum map standards because that does more harm to the program than good. What we follow is what the business and industry calls for that class. Within Ignite, the 10 different programs, we have, of course, college credit, high school credit, certifications, valuable, but not as valuable as the network that they have built after they've been in the program. These kids in our medical, Ignite Medical, are standing in on open heart surgeries. A delivery, a baby delivery, is an everyday occurrence for them. They partner with doctors who want to take them under their wing and help them eventually get to medical school. Some can go directly from the program, and they also get their EMT/MR certificate along the way. They have to make all the runs that any adult would have to do. When we started the program, Walmart corporate said, we don't take interns that haven't graduated from college. Today, they take every intern that we can give them, and we currently have 56 from cybersecurity to technology working at home office, but they're plugged into all of the businesses. Those kids don't want to get out for snow day today early. They don't want to miss their classes. They're engaged. But the beauty of this is I was concerned. How are we going to convince a community that has a high median income to go to a career program? That is not a concern that you have to have. You produce a good product that kids love, they're learning, they're performing. When we have open house at Ignite, it's like walking into a sorority select party. There's so much anxiety in the room from parents in the community because they want their children in the program. So let's talk about the interview process. The other 40% that are on the waiting list. We take juniors and seniors. We have to make sure that the kids are responsible, that they're going to be in school. It's a privilege to be in the school because we cannot burn bridges with our business partners. And if you don't make it this year, you have a really good, successful year in school and apply again next year. This program has improved all of the other career programs within our high schools because we started measuring Ignite, BHS, and Bentonville West. How many internship opportunities did you provide this year? And so it is improving the career opportunities for all. But basically, we have to look at doing things differently.
Right. And I think one of the interesting things about superintendents is just how much data they collect, either intentionally, unintentionally. And Dave, I want to come to you because I think you spend a lot of time speaking with your community, collecting this kind of data. So how does that dovetail with the expectations that both students and parents now have from schools?
I think we're all up here fighting for the right to educate our community's children. And we need to be very deep into how we think about that work. In our school system, we have reinvented what public education looks like. We're being very, very strategic. And it begins with a clear understanding, there are students in elementary school, about 50% of them are probably going to go into careers that don't yet exist. And 100% of them, regardless of the career that they go into, are going to use tools or resources within that industry that don't yet exist. So when we talk career pathways, we need to ensure there's a pathway for things that yet don't exist. And that's the bold initiative work that all of us are on. We have designed our school district to maximize the portfolio of schools. 100% of the schools in our district is a school of choice. If you live in Indian River County, the public school system is going to fight for the right to educate your child. We'll figure out how to get you to that school, and we're going to maximize as a community the portfolio of schools that we have. In elementary school, we're going to be extremely intentional about making sure our students leave with curiosity. We want them to question absolutely everything. In middle school, we're going to be very strategic about making sure they're creative and they're problem solvers. And when you get to high school, we've already set the expectation. High school principals, your students are going to graduate with advanced placement work, AP, dual enrollment, Cambridge. You're going to graduate with industry certification as well. 5 years ago, about 59% of our students graduated under that criteria. The class that just finished, 78% of them will graduate with one of those three industries. So it's saying something that is bold, and then creating the plan to make it happen, which means we had to stop doing a lot of things. Public education needs to stop doing what doesn't work. Transformation begins with stopping what doesn't work. There were a number of nice career programs that were in my school district that did not lead to a high-paying, high-wage job. It just wasn't a high-demand job. So we had to stop doing them. We had to add nursing programs. We had to add welding programs or scale up the welding programs that we had. And then we need to ensure that as students graduate, that's just the entry point. Whether it is college or whether it's the vocation, that they have the skills to continue to be curious and take their potential and constantly redefine and expand that potential. That's the work that we do.
Great, thank you. I think you brought up a really interesting, the big C word in education right now, which is choice. And we're in a disruptive public school environment. I called it turbulent, someone called it disruptive. But when it comes to choice, which is going to be, I think, a parental and political agenda for the next few years, it has been. How do you deal with it as a public school superintendent, right? I think Walter, you mentioned that you'd like to speak about how choice should become a part of how we think of public schools. So, yeah, I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Thank you. So when you think about the concept of choice, school choice, I fundamentally agree with the concept. Last February, I presented at the Ways and Means Committee for our legislative session, and I challenged them because I said I don't particularly have a problem with school choice. I have a problem that public schools have been left out of the conversation, and so and I also informed them that we can provide school choice. Why was I able to say that? Because for the previous 2 years, my school district put $4 million a year to provide that school choice. I also challenged them to look at allowing us to compete for the money that funds school choice. All of us I mean by homeschool, charter schools, public schools, put in a competitive process, and then we have to show that we're sustaining it. I had a plan all played out for them, right? And at the end, they said, well, look, we're going to give you money to help you fund this school choice, but we're not going to do the second part. We're not going to allow people to compete for it. In my mind, I said, not yet. But so with that stated, we were able to, we were given some access to monies to do that, to build upon what we were already doing. But to reframe the way we were thinking and what we were doing, I had to make sure that I included all of the voices within my community. That I couldn't just create a public school system of choice or serve people, and we were the only one that we were listening to, that we were talking to. We by means of educators. So we formed advisory groups. We formed student advisory groups, parent advisory groups, business advisory groups. I serve 22 different mayors and city councils. Yeah. And somebody asked me one time, they said, how in the world do you serve 22 different mayors? I said, one at a time. And so we put together a governmental advisory group that included mayors, legislators, and commissioners. And I meet with each one of these groups once a quarter so that we can all understand what are the options, possibilities out there. Because even though we're going to have new jobs in the next, by the time these children, an elementary child grows up, there are many career pathways that exist in some of our communities that some parents have no idea about. Children have no idea about. So bridging that community gap. At first, we started off with middle school and high school students with advisory groups. talking to them about their educational career. But this past year, I decided to put elementary students, 4th and 5th grade, involved in. I was asked the question, do you really think an elementary kid can give us information that would allow us to help us in this? And I said, yeah, they're brutally honest, right? And so we are embarking upon magnet schools, and so we started educating the children on what were magnet schools. And so they learned about the language immersion program. They learned about the performing arts, the STEM program. And we brought those elementary students together, one from each one of our schools. So that's 30 children from across. You'd be amazed as to what these children said. The language immersion was a big hit. Um, from the words of one of the babies, a 4th grader, she said, I would have liked to be able to speak another language, especially Spanish, because I could appear friendlier with my friends who speak that language. And then when you have those types of conversations, they'll even tell you how you should do it, right? Because one of the questions they asked me, they said, well, would it be mandatory? Would we have to do a second language? And we said, no, it'd be a choice. And he said, well, that's good. That's good. Because one young lady said, most of my peers, they're struggling with learning one language. I wouldn't want them to try to learn two. That was my awful names. But anyway, so we involve these different groups. And then once you get the information, then the next thing to do is you have to implement the plan. With those 22 mayors, even with the legislators, one of the things we always said, no one gets to leave the table without getting something back. And so we started this engagement model with the mayors and the legislators. What did that mean? That you have to figure out, help us work with the strategic plan, and then you have to figure out what can you and your entity do to assist in reframing the school district. Now, within those 22 different cities, we have cities that have enough resources where they could commit 5 meals a year to the education of those schools within their zones. That's about $1.8 million. And they work along with the strategic plan, and they put it to those 4 schools. I might have another city that can't do that. They don't have those type of resources, right? And so one of those mayors came to me and he said, we don't have those resources. What can I do? And I said, well, what are your talents? We went through all types of things. And he said, well, we're going to go back and we're going to figure it out. And lo and behold, his wife helped him out. She said, I train therapy dogs. And so our contribution to those children in our area is we're going to put those into the schools. Everyone must be engaged, everyone. And so, again, when we reframe what we do, we have to make sure that everybody is in the conversation and that we respect all of it. So when I talked about school choice and I met with the parents, I remember one parent saying, so what you have done is you have created a private school within a public school setting. We're so proud of that. So no, it's not private, it's just public. I want you to always understand that. But with 57 schools, 35,000 students, 4,500 employees, we have the ability to do it. But I really do believe that we must challenge those who are in power to not try to exclude us from that conversation and nor the funding.
Right. I'd love to hear from the rest of the panel too. Yeah.
So I think it's definitely thank you, a social justice issue and an equity issue, especially if it's not done correctly. And so, as superintendents, I always focus on what we have control over within our realm. And so we have, I think we're doing okay because we have actually created our own choice internally as a system. So we have, I would say, over 2,000 students who have options. And so there's a process called the boundary waiver process, for example, for students in kindergarten through 8th grade. Parents can apply to attend any school within the district. And if space is available, and of course they have to be well behaved and good attendance, they usually get in. And so there are over 300 students just in the boundary of a process. We have an IB process, IB's choice, a gifted middle school, that's choice, JROTC's choice, the manufacturer's choice, the Woodruff Career Technical Center that we opened and expanded from part-time to full-time, that's also choice. So there are lots of options within the district that individuals anyone can apply for. And so because we actually had a charter school that was just closed. My board closed it last year. And so all these kids came back, about 400 students came back to Peoria Public Schools, and they had access to, picking the schools that they wanted to attend. So I think the moral of the story for us in Peoria is try to provide as much choice as you can within your system to minimize people leaving and decreased enrollments. And I get it. We need choice. Look at us. We're all wearing different colors, right? I mean, we're not all. So choice is very important. It's human nature. And when my parents call and send an email, and I try everything I can to assist in providing choice. High school is a different animal because of IHSA or high school sports, but there's still some ways around it with JROTC and those other things. So yeah.
So I think the simple fact is, all of us up here, the number one choice for educating children in all of our communities is the public education system. And why on God's green earth would we allow anyone else to tell our story? In public education, we need to be the authors of our own reform. First thing I asked the board to do is, I want you to make every single school a choice school. Principals looked at me and like, what are you doing? I thought, we're the public school. I said, we're going to fight for the right. And if you want someone to love their job, let them be a partner in the creation of what that job is. Bring back the craft of teaching. The conversations that took place during the pandemic when I was there about what's our theme going to be? How are we going to go and market? Because we want to make sure we're still going to be here. We got to fight for kids. There's no reason that we shouldn't fully embrace choice. There's no reason that we as a system cannot redesign ourselves in a way and reinvent ourselves in a way in order to ensure we continue to be the number one choice in every single community. School District of Indian River County is the fastest outperforming district in the state of Florida. For the last 3 years, we've had the highest rate of improvement. We went from 38th to 9th in the state of Florida, an improvement that's never been seen in the history of Florida schools. So I look to my legislators and say, if it can be done in Indian River County, and we're willing to engage the entire community in the conversation, give us more money. Let us pilot what public choice really looks like. Yes, level the playing field. But until you do, you're not going to stop us. Our community is on fire and excited about the opportunity for choice. 1 in 4 students in Indian River County is a choice student. They don't know if they're going to a choice school, it's a charter school. They know if they're homeschool. And they don't know if they're in a public school. They're picking something that is unique to them. And we will work with parents when they walk into our doors and say, we're going to integrate an experience for you that maximizes just not a feeder pattern approach, but we're going to design a pathway for you where we're going to take advantage of all of our schools. We're going to use our schools to connect. It is so important for principals to connect to their community. You want to sell public education? Have parents do it. Empower them to go and tell the great stories that they have the ability to tell. We got work to do. Thank you.
Debbie, quick reaction from you on that.
I hear common themes throughout. And what I think you see up here are people that think not just like educators, but think like CEOs as well. That you have to market, you have to communicate, you have to innovate. You can't just be fearful of change. In Arkansas, we have vouchers wide open. And we've created parent choice schools, special models. We've been very vocal about telling the stories. And we partnered with Region 14 to help us create the handbook on how to create parent choice options in public school. And so it will be successful. My belief is if they can do it, we can do it better. We have the systems, transportation, we have food systems, we have pay scales, we have highly qualified and certified teachers. And that's why we'll be successful. And that's why students and families will continue to select public school as long as we give them lots of good choices that they can choose.
Great, thank you. I love the blurring of the concept of choice and how you reclaimed it. I do have more questions, but I did promise audience questions, and we're almost at time. So I now open the floor for any questions that you guys might have for our finalists.
I have a student story I just read yesterday. So we we have staff housing that we're building, but we also started staff childcare. And in one of our smaller downtown schools, we embedded childcare within this elementary school. The principal at first was a little offended. We would put that in the school. I read an email from him last night, and he bullet pointed. He said, rather than being disgruntled about this, I have to share a story. A fourth grade class walked by the child care classrooms today, and they were so quiet. And I asked the director, Lori, what's going on with these kids? She said, nothing. I just said, shh, the babies are sleeping. He said, embedding those in our school has done so much to improve the culture, the feeling of teachers, and the feeling of other kids. And that's what I'm thinking of today.
Just one. So whenever we talk about school choice, we talk about how we created them, who helped us create them. But the beautiful story is, what did it produce? What story did it produce? What opportunity was the end result for some of the children? And this past May, when we graduated a group of students, I had a father and a mother um, approach me. And the father said that 6 years prior, uh, they had come to this country and they couldn't speak English, and the child could barely speak English. And they were worried that their language was a liability to them and success. And so, but we fast forward 6 years with a good public education, and this child entering and participating in our construction management and interior design, getting that credential. We had a big signing day. She signed a job contract for $72,000 a year, and it was large in part to the fact that she was bilingual. And so the father said, "Thank you for helping us turn our liability into an asset." And so that's why we do what we do. And we say public school choice, and we should offer it, but I don't want us to ever forget the fact that for many of our children, public school is the only choice. So therefore, it has to be one of great quality.
Thank you. We started a superintendent roundtable and student board members in 2015 when I started, and I meet with them once a quarter, and I hear a lot from them. I'm like, you are my ears and eyes in your buildings, and I'll give them an index card. And what are some things that are 3 things that are going well, 3 things that you do want me to improve, and then my assistant will get the common themes, and I'll work on those, whether it's better books in the library and so forth. And there were 3 student board members because we have 3 high schools. I meet with them as well. And so one of them, I'll talk about one, she's a senior, she's graduating. maybe about October, she sent me an email and said she wanted to meet with me, and I said absolutely. And she has a busy schedule, so we ended up doing it virtually. She had an agenda. I was totally impressed, and she had items that she wanted me to help her work on to improve her schools. Things like vaping. She says kids are vaping in the bathroom. And so that was one. The bathrooms, improving the bathrooms, especially the girls' bathrooms. And then I think their lunchroom tables. Those are the three that I could remember. And I said yes. So we're going to get a device. So she's going to get some satisfaction and improvements based on the items of interest and concerns. And I'm just very, very proud of her, the way she presented herself. And she came in with an agenda and she was taking notes. And I had also like buildings and grounds. Brandon was there. Okay, Mr. B, let's look into the vaping device. Apparently there's some, so it was just, I still cannot forget this kid. She was like a young professional.
So I want to tell the story of the student I think of the most, and the student that reminds me of how important this work is. I was a counselor of an alternative school in Miami. All the students there were expelled from their home school. Jose was there. He was the leader of the gang in his home school, sold more drugs than any of us could ever think about. In coming into MacArthur South, he was establishing himself to continue to do more of the same. And when you're in that kind of school environment, you have to be able to connect with kids to make sure they're making the right decisions, just to make your life a little bit easier. In constant conversations with them. But in one of the conversations is you choose who you lead. And you may not have any credits, but you are a leader among your peers. They follow you, they look to you. And if I can get you to go in and sit in the front of the classroom, engage in the instruction, and ask everyone else, if you just turn around and ask everyone else to be quiet and listen to the teacher, they're going to do it. They're going to do it before the teacher says to do it. And he finally made that connection. The adults in that building were unwavering in supporting him, went back to his home school, graduated, actually went to Miami-Dade College in the Honors College, went on to graduate. And now he owns a series of car washes in Miami. He is a small business owner, extremely successful. But you go back 20 years ago, he was on the verge of spending a lifetime of failure. If it wasn't for the adults in that building, the ongoing conversations, just to get the spark for him to believe in himself, just for one day, to build it to 2 days. He is where he is today because of those adults, their belief in him, and what public education can do.
Any other questions? Yes, please.
No, no. Advice from the high school principal that did the pilot last year, and he had all the committee meetings, all of that. The advice to the other principal who had not had all of the meetings with the parents, he said, just do it. Yes, we are collecting data. 86% of the teachers said that all the students were more engaged in instruction. A 56% reduction from the pilot in violent offenses. A large reduction in the 80s of drug offenses. Why? Because that's how they meet up to exchange drugs. And so I'm convinced we'll have really good data just from this first semester alone. All of our over 3,000 kids just our 5th and 6th grade. If you are caught with a phone at school, your parent has to come pick it up to get it back. We had a total of 6 parents pick up phones. It can be done. And we do have some pouches and all that to help, but that's really not necessary. But what is necessary is it has to be a district-wide and a school-wide commitment. Don't leave it to the teachers because it does not work that way. And so not only will we see better results at school, parents are seeing the benefits at home. We've also offered support, parent nights with parent night meetings to talk more about some of the negative impacts of social media. The conversation needs to continue.
We're also a no cell phone free zone in Peoria Public Schools. We just implemented it at the start of this year. And for first semester, we have collected some data and hot off the press because of our news media, they're interested in it. And the engagement, the kids have talked about increased engagement for sure. And it's really interesting. In 2011, there were only about 35% ownership of cell phones. 2023, 97, at least 97 or higher now because we're in 2025. Ownership. So everyone owns a cell phone. And so obviously the teachers, I could relate to the stories. The first day they're in class and they're like, so what are the kids are saying? So what are we going to do now? So the teacher's like, you're going to talk to each other. I've read some of the kids, or some of them are lamenting about not having their phones or even giving them an opportunity to use it during lunchtime. But for the most part, the engagement has increased. Teachers are seeing better engagement and a lot more learning. So we will at the end of the year also look to see if there are any achievement outcomes, increased student outcomes as well. But it's nothing but positive, and the mental health has helped as well, has reduced significantly. So we're still monitoring. It's fresh up, but it was my district policy. No cell phones. They said, hey, we want you to do it. We did it. We had a plan. We have pouches. We're seeing a lot more damages with pouches, and 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 yeah. So we'll continue to monitor, but it's overall it was a good move with really little pushback from the children.
In our school district, we piloted that particular program in one of our high schools. This past year was our first year, and we're doing much of what has already been discussed, and looking at data to see whether it is reducing discipline and having students engaged. So we're going to complete that pilot study, and then we will see what are the next steps if we're going to scale it to other high schools and middle schools. But we do want to look at the data. I can tell you through different emails and surveys at the beginning, there were, especially at this particular school, there were children who weren't particularly happy about that. But we had to meet with them, discuss the matter with them, also with their parents. But anecdotally speaking, our teachers are saying that children are more engaged, and we could see with the discipline that the discipline is down. So we'll move from there.
So very quickly, this is our second year around cell phones. Being away from the second that bell rings has drastically improved the amount of time teachers can teach. We had 48 students last year, and this was district-wide. Our board said, let's rip the Band-Aid off. Let's do it across the entire system. That ended up in the alternative school because they just couldn't put their phone away. And the progression of this had led to the alternative placement. This year, not one. Teachers, when they stop me at the grocery store, one of the constant thank yous is always, thank you for making them put the phones away. I love my job so much more. I can spend so much more time teaching. The cyberbullying is the one thing that almost in middle schools was completely eliminated. Some of the incredibly harsh things kids would do with their phones, just gone. And I think it's already shared, the noise in the cafeteria is just a great space to be when you're seeing kids interact with one another.
Right, great. We are actually over time, so thank you you can continue to ask our finalist questions outside the room. Before I let all of you go, just one very quick reaction. What's your word for 2025? And Debbie, we can start with you and go down the...
Innovation.
Impact.
Unapologetically bold. Is that one word? Unapologetic.
Results.
All right, very on point for superintendent. So thank you so much.